Hello everyone, it's author Sandra Wilson and I'm here for our very first Storytime lesson in the Kindness Kangaroo Library on YouTube. The reason I'm creating these lessons is to help build storytelling skills in adults or children and to inspire some story ideas so that you could write your own stories as well. Stories are a very important part of life, not only for us to have conversations and connect with people, but also to explore our emotions, our memories, and really create observation tools for the world as well. So I really love stories for many reasons, and I want to share some ideas on how you could create your own story. So today's lesson is write what you know. And if anybody has taken writing courses before, it's a very common thing. But what does that really mean, write what you know? What do you know? So I wanted to give you some examples of how we could do that. So we could be inspired by our personal experiences, the things that happen to us on a regular basis, or special events, things like that, our personal experiences. And so to write about these, we want to be able to connect with the emotions. So if you're writing a story about a special event and you can recall the excitement and how you felt, then that is something that you can record into the story. Now, I wrote this book, The Empty Cage, which is about the loss of a pet. And when I was writing the book, I could think back on pets that I had as a child and how I felt, how I responded when they died. And so I was able to connect to those emotions and work on creating the story, because that's the main part of this story, is grief and loss. And so connecting with those emotions helps to convey that story. And so it's not just about, sad emotions or exciting emotions, but, what kind is going on as you have that experience. What are you feeling? Maybe what are the others around you experiencing, feeling? And that could develop into a story idea. So you could also be watching the others around you and create a story based on that. So our Dinosaur Twins Explore the Woods is a story I wrote inspired by my twin grandchildren. And so we often take walks in the woods and I would watch what they would do and what they would say and what they found fun and what they didn't find fun. And I developed a story based on that. Now they're twins and they're siblings, and so, one usually likes to do one thing and one usually likes the other. In this case, one likes to, go the trail as fast as they possible. The other one likes to stop and pick up stones and rocks and sticks and look at bugs and things like that. So that created a conflict in the story where one's ahead and one's behind, and so it was a great sibling story that I could create based on personal experiences of watching these two siblings just explore the woods. So it could be simple as, hey, there's a walk in the woods and there's a conflict created because, there's some sibling rivalry. One wanted to do one thing, one wanted to do the other. It could be something that an experience like the loss of a pet or the loss of a person and how that helped, how that person felt and how maybe people were able to help them work through their grief, things like that. It might be something like a birthday party and, what was good or bad about that birthday party, because that's a personal experience as well. Now, author Lauren Dawn Davidson wrote Lucy and Her Talkative Pets Defeat the Virus. Now, she has a series of books of Lucy and her talkative pets, and this one, she says, was inspired by her coworkers telling her to put her story in words of what she experienced during the pandemic. So, what was very important to Lauren as an author person was the connection she got with her community and the network that she belonged to of people. And of course, when the pandemic hit, we didn't have those connections. So she talks about the story of how that all changed and how it was dealt with through the internet. So it says she wants to be able to meet people in person again, but for right now, she has to be happy with visiting them on the computer. And so then throughout the book, she talks about the different people that are on the computer with her as part of that community and what they're doing. So there's the person that's signing up for the programs, and there's the ones to give them problem problem solving so that they, are using their thinking caps and staying, their brains are staying fresh during the pandemic. There's, the cooking in the kitchen, and then the friends that all can visit online with each other. And then there's the fitness person and the creative corner where they get into arts and crafts and things like that. So all throughout the book, the whole story was based around her personal experiences in what she experienced while she was going through the pandemic. And she created that into a story, putting the story onto Lucy and her talkative pets because she already had those characters built. And so she incorporated the story of, how she got through the pandemic, how that community aspect of the pandemic was continued. So that was how she took her personal experiences and created it into a story. So that's a really kind of a neat way to do it, taking our emotions, our experiences, the things that we've done, and putting it into a story. Now, you don't have to be limited to one example as well. A lot of times we do something more than once. And so there may have been things happened in different occasions while we were doing something, and those things we can all pile together into one story. For example, I would often go canoeing. So it started when I was a teenager. I went canoeing with a friend, and we actually tipped the canoe. And so there was that experience of tipping the canoe, going in the water, being soaking wet, waiting for the next canoe to come by, trying to find some dry clothes to wear until we could get back to, the cabin where we were hanging out as a group of teens. Fast forward to when I was in a canoe with a friend of mine, and we were paddling, and the dog was in the canoe with us, and the dog saw a bird and decided to jump out to try to chase the bird. Of course, went underwater, went under the canoe. As I pulled the dog back up into the canoe, shook, everybody got wet. Of course, we laughed about that. And, so that was another time I was in a canoe and I got wet. And then another time when I was in the canoe with my husband and my kids, and my husband steered towards the waterfall so we could get a good look at the waterfall, but he steered too far and we actually went under the waterfall, and of course we got all wet again. So even though those 3 incidents took place in 3 separate times when I was canoeing, you could take them all and pile them into one story and kind of create, the silliness of a canoe trip, or, the wetness of a canoe trip, or getting wet while in the canoe. All those different kinds of things can make a story. So it could be a different time period that all these things happened, but because they all took place in a canoe, you can move it into a story. Just because you're writing what you're about your personal experiences doesn't limit it to one event. It could be just a continuation of a lot of events that you've added into the story. It's about writing what you know, and what you know is you've had these experiences, so you can take those experiences and wrap it up into one major event. So that's kind of what I want you to do as your first activity in our Storytime lessons. Think about something that you do often. So maybe you play a sport, or take music lessons or dance lessons. Maybe you like to hike in the woods or go canoeing. Something that you've done more than once, or you do often enough that there'll be quite a few experiences that you can think back on. Now, if you create a list of different things that happened while you were on those things, like I gave the example of what happened on different experiences when I was in a canoe trip. Sometimes canoe trips were, it was just calm water, we saw some nice flowers, maybe a bird or two, and there wasn't anything major that happened. But sometimes something major happened, and that was something we're writing down. So if you've got a sports team, and did something silly happen, did something great happen, like did somebody have a strange way of scoring, or was there certain fans there? I know I've seen videos with dogs running onto the field, or maybe it stole the ball and ran away, or what kinds of. So make a list of experiences that you've had with this event that you do often, and then look at that list and see what you can combine together to create a story. So maybe it's a funny story, like the canoe and everybody getting wet. Maybe it's a cool adventure. So maybe as you were exploring through the woods, you found a cave and you explored the cave. Maybe there was a waterfall and you could go behind the waterfall. Maybe there was, you found some fossils. And so those 3 things could create an adventure story of something that you've done as on a hike. Or maybe it's a lesson in perseverance. So often if you're practicing, say you're practicing a musical instrument for a concert or a sports event for a competition, or even a spelling competition or a singing competition or a dance competition, anything like that, it takes time to practice and practice in order to be able to compete at a level where you might win. So a lesson in perseverance could be of, well, I kept trying, I didn't win the first time. I tried a different way, or I found a new method, I tried with some friends, we worked together, I got some help. All these different things could happen that would then lead to, and then I finally did it. So it could be a story of courage. I wasn't brave enough to get on stage. I worked a little harder and did a performance in front of, a smaller group of people, and I worked harder again, was finally able to get on stage. So all these kinds of things reflect back to those personal experiences. So connect to those emotions, connect to those specific events, and think of how it all works together in a story. So that's your activity for us, lesson 1, write what you know. I hope you join us next time for our next Storytime lesson here in the Kindness Kangaroo Library.